You're listening to Shmu in Focus, a podcast that takes a serious look at the issues important to you. Join us as we explore poverty in Aberdeen, sharing personal stories, insights from experts and perspectives from the ground. Don't miss Shmu in Focus. Real talk, real issues, real solutions.
Thank you for joining us on our latest episode of the Shmu in Focus podcast. And today we're shining a spotlight on unpaid carers in Aberdeen as part of the Poverty Alliance Challenge Poverty Week. In Scotland, there are roughly 800,000 unpaid carers. An unpaid carer is someone who cares for someone who is ill, disabled, older, has mental health concerns, or is experiencing addiction and is not paid by a company or a local authority to do this. Today, I'm joined by Sandy and Tanya Gibson, who are both unpaid carers, and Lauren Gardner from Quarriers, one of Scotland's leading social care charities. Thank you for coming on to our podcast, guys. Sandy and Tanya, how did you come to become unpaid carers?
That would 15 years ago. My wife went in for a routine operation in the NHS Grampian, and due to failure within NHS Grampian, that she was left disabled. And from there, we were given a choice. Well, we were given pretty well choices of trying to get someone in to care for her, which is an absolute expense in itself, or to jack in my job and care for her myself. And that's the option we took down. I've always been one of the mind, it's my family, it's my family to look after. So I made a decision to leave my job and look after not only my wife but my three kids at the time.
Yeah, because I was going to say the kids must have been, I'll just come to Tanya, you just know, you must have been pretty young when that happened as well.
Yeah, I was 10 when I started being a young carer for my mum, and I think it just really came out of me needing to kind of step into that role, because
it's a fair step up with a 10-year-old to become the mother of the house, wasn't it?
Especially because I have a younger brother and I was kind of really doing it for him, so he had someone to support him.
Yeah. So did you say that, Sandy, 15 years ago that was?
15 years. Am I right? That's 2009, wasn't it? Like that. So it's 15 years that I've been caring for my wife. Every year brings us a different struggle.
Well, I was just going to ask about the experiences that you've had over there. It must have been a range of experiences you've had over the time. Especially, I know you get the stigma of people say, why are you not working, when they don't understand the situation.
Yep.
And I know that because we've been friends for 10, 12 years now. Yep. And I know that you've had to cancel a lot of things, and you said you've lost a lot of friends because people just don't understand. Because obviously your wife's caring comes first.
Definitely, and because of my wife's needs, it's I can cancel in the last minute, which has made me think of things like, especially if you're going to things like weddings and stuff like that, because you cancelling on something like that is actually costing money to the person. Is actually, they are not one for that. To me, that's not fair on the person. So I tend to, when I get these invites through the door, I just say no, I won't be able to attend straight off. And then you get the stigma of never wanting to be able to. I mean, you've been the end of it. I've had to cancel on you last minute a lot of times, and it just depends on how my wife feels at the time.
Well, it's understandable though, because I mean, anything like that can happen, and you must have felt the same. It's when you was going to school and being tired going to school, coming home, and then caring for your mum as well. That, as I said, it's a big pressure put on a family.
Yeah, no, I was sick a lot at school, but because of my anxiety. And a lot of that was tied to the fact that I didn't want to leave my mum at home.
I can totally understand that.
I felt a lot happier when I was at home with my mum, and I was able to help out when I could.
Yeah. Well, Lauren, these experiences are really not unique. Can you tell us about what the work at Quarriers does?
Yes, so being a social work charity, we do a lot of work with unpaid carers. We're the leading one in Scotland at the moment. So yeah, we work with carers in various different ways, and we can be there for obviously emotional support, but we also work for advocacy for the unpaid carer. I myself work with the funding that we can give carers. This obviously goes towards respite and gives them a break from their everyday caring role, which can be quite demanding and stressful. So it gives them a bit of a break for a few hours. It can be this funding is useful because it can allow the carer to go away for a few nights as well. So I mean, we do various different things working with unpaid carers, and it's adult carers we work with. So I mean, I've been there 2 years now, so it's very good work, and it's some of the cases we come across.
It must be difficult, some of the cases you come across.
Yes, a lot of people have to step down in their work because of their caring role is so demanding. A lot of people actually have to quit work altogether, which is a lot of financial strain. So we step in to basically signpost and be there to support the carer and signpost them to any financial aid they can get. That's the work that we would do.
I mean, Sandy, you stepped down like from work 15 years ago, and I mean, I know we've had this conversation many times, and your wife had her own business as well at that time, so that was two incomes not coming into the house. That must have been really, really hard at the time as well, especially with 3 young kids.
Yeah, because you don't know where to turn. You know, as I say, I didn't know about the couriers at the time, but my automatic was a citizen advice bureau, because that's where everybody seems to turn when they've got problems. And at the same time, you've got you're still paying things like rent and rent and all the council tax, paying all this stuff, and you're saying, well, okay, I've got no money coming in. What happens now? Because I've never been down this route before, you know. And you got the thing is, it wasn't just a little drop off. It was like I went from the oil down to I actually worked for the NHS.
Yeah.
And you know, like when you get a job in the NHS, it's pretty well a job for life.
It's safety, safety net.
And not even that, it's a job I really thoroughly enjoyed. I know I love going to work every day, you know, because I was in charge of, you know, starting projects in the NHS and starting getting all the new computer gear in and stuff like that. So I felt an integral part, and I felt important, and to have that conversation with my boss. And don't get me wrong, they were brilliant. You know, I've taken nothing away from my 2 bosses there. Scott and Ian were brilliant. They tried to keep me on for as long as they could and kept me in wages. But there was a time where they just had to, you know, we sat down and the plug had to get pulled.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, we are now. And I went to Citizen Advice, and they pretty well took care of everything from there on. Told me what I could apply for. Told me that like with income support, with DLA, there was so much out there. It was just over my head. So many forms to fill out.
Overwhelming, isn't it?
It was really, and it had to be done pretty quick because seriously, I had no money. You know.
Yeah.
You know, the day that the plug was pulling my job was pretty well. That was it. That was your last wage. So you had 4 weeks to sort out the rest of your life, and that in itself was and not only that, get 3 kids ready for school, look after your wife at home, and try and make sure everything's ticking over nicely. And it was hard, but we got there in the end.
Is this a kind of typical story, Lauren?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, as you were saying, Sandy, a lot of people's workplaces, they'll do what they can to accommodate, but at the end of the day, there's only so much flexibility they have.
Definitely.
And then at some point, I mean, we get that quite often, and then after which a lot of carers come to us not knowing what resources are out there. So that's a part of what we do as well, is signposting and, you know, putting the carer to where they are entitled to, and what's I mean, as you were saying, there's a wealth of stuff out there that a lot of people won't know about, which is quite useful. So that's what we do.
I was about 5 years in before I got carer's allowance, because I didn't class myself as a carer.
I remember you saying that.
At that time I was a husband looking after my family. And I had all, you know, to me it was...
Was that a sort of pride thing, or was that just a thing? Or you didn't know what was out there?
I didn't know there was carers allowance out there. I didn't know that. That wasn't even an option when I was at Citizen Advice, because it was always thought that my wife's case was always going to get better and I'll be back to work within a year. But then a year became 2 years, and 2 years became 3 years, and 3 years became 5 years, and suddenly you're saying, well, okay, this is not working. There's a time where you got put a line and just say, right, this is my life now. This is the hand of cards I've been dealt. I'm just going to have to play what I've been dealt.
Yeah.
And then, right, what do I need to put in place? This, and this is getting deeper into the because my wife was still going in and out of hospital at that time, and that became a lot harder because emotionally for my wife, every knock back from the hospital was, had to get picked up by me, and try and keep it off the kids because, well, they were going through things like, their standard grades, or what is it called, O levels, whatever you were doing at the time, national fives, their hires, and then and Boyd was coming through the primary school. So yeah, that was quite hard. But actually sitting down and saying, okay, maybe I am a carer. Maybe this is what's going to happen, and that in itself comes with its own problems, especially in family dynamics, because the whole family dynamic changes. You're no longer husband and wife.
Well, I was just going to say that about Tanya. And Tanya had to grow up really, really quickly.
Very quickly. And the funny thing is,
taking over her mother.
We were just talking about this the other day. I didn't even realise she was caring for her mum.
Mm-hmm.
It was an automatic thing where I was trying to keep everything was sort of put into place to make it not as hard for Boyd because he was the youngest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So things like, remember, we used to go and watch Aberdeen at the weekend.
Yeah.
Well, when I was with Boyd watching Aberdeen at the weekend, who was looking after Michelle?
Exactly.
Tanya.
And
even taking the boys to go and play football at the weekend. I think I was still coaching at the time. So, and that was a Sunday. So while I was there with the boys coaching, who was that was Tanya's Saturday and Sunday taken up. She was a very skilled, very good dancer when she was 10 years old. She was the face of dance centre, one of the biggest schools.
And a good artist as well.
Oh, good artist. But that was one of the first things that went, was Tanya's dance, because it was the most expensive. It was the biggest expense we had on our bill. And to this day, I still regret it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of my regrets I'll always have.
Yeah.
Because
I remember us talking about this.
I snuffled her there and then, But at the time, I had to make decisions, really hard decisions.
Yeah.
And that was just one of them that I wish that I didn't have to make.
Yeah, you're listening to Shmoo. We are Poverty Alliance Challenge Poverty Week. This is Shmoo in Focus. We'll be back right after this with more chat from Tanya and Sandy and Lauren.
You're listening to Shmoo in Focus, brought to you by Station House Media Unit. Established in 2003 as a charity, Shmoo is a cornerstone of culture in North East Scotland. We empower the voices of Aberdeen's priority areas through radio, video, music and digital media. From employability training to adult services, we're committed to uplifting communities. Stay with us for more stories that matter.
And we're back. This is the Shmoo in Focus podcast. We're looking at unpaid carers. I've got Sandy and Tanya here, who are both unpaid carers, and I've also got Lauren from Quarriers, which help with unpaid carers. Lauren, do you think that there's a lot of people out there that don't know what is available to them, and that's why because is it a stigma of not wanting to ask because people think you're a failure or something like that? I don't know.
It can be. It depends on the individual, but a lot of the times it can be just not knowing. They get so caught up in what's going on that it kind of spirals.
Yeah.
And then they usually come across us because they've been referred by another place, usually the NHS or something like that, or they would be referred to by a third party basically, and that's how they come across us. Not a lot of people are aware of Quarriers. But I do come across that quite a lot of just it can be a pride thing a little bit with some, but usually people just aren't aware of the things available.
Would it be a pride thing with you, Sandy, to start off with?
It probably would have been. Yeah. But also the lack of, well, as I said, I mean, I didn't even take myself as being a carer. You know, I've just been a husband looking after my family, making sure we can keep the heads above water.
But a lot of sort of unpaid carers end up experiencing poverty. What do you think is the factors contributing to that then?
Well, the sudden change from having money to not having money, because the things that take away the rent and stuff like that. People put their life on loans. They've got credit cards.
And then when your kids get older, you've got student loans and all that stuff as well.
And not even that, Dave. You've got things like every year you've got birthdays, you've got Christmases. These are things that you dread, absolutely dread, and you know. And I know sometimes people that are on low incomes dread Christmases but when you have got no income, and all you're relying on is what you get from the government. And remember, the government don't give you money for Christmas and birthdays. They give you money to live on. You're then making the choices of whether, okay, I'm going to have to cut back there, so I can at least provide some sort of birthday, Christmas gifts. I was very lucky with my family. My mum bailed me out big time, you know, and when she passed was a major loss for me, because she did help me out quite a lot. And my brother also used to send money back from Dubai when he was out there.
He was also saying there's a couple of local organisations helped you out as well.
Yeah, I love the bikers. You know, any bikers in Aberdeen that do the hospital runs and stuff like that, you're an absolute godsend. But my friend was one of them, and he popped by one Christmas with leftover presents from the hospital, and he dropped them off so I could put them under my tree. And also the church helped one year. My local church came round, and they gave me presents and some food as well. I felt that I feel ashamed taking it. I probably did, because I didn't think I needed it.
Is that the stigma attached to it then?
Yeah. That was it. I mean, the stigma attached to someone coming to your door and handing over a bag of food, you know.
Yeah, no, I know.
In this day and age, you know, well, maybe not in this day and age,
well, no,
because it happens so often now.
But moved further up.
It's moved further up, yeah. So, it's a strange one. Unless it's actually happened to you, it's a strange feeling to have. You do feel grateful, but you also feel embarrassed. You feel, you know, that you've let your family down because you're meant to be the provider of all this stuff, but due to no means of, not because of myself, not because of my wife, not able to do that. So yeah, asking for help is probably one of the hardest things you know to do, and but you need to sometimes.
You said you struggle with anxiety at school as well, Tanya. Did you find that because other people were getting £150 trainers and you wasn't, did you struggle with that? Why people were getting when they weren't even trying, and then you felt you were missing out?
I don't think I ever really felt the impact of that until I was like later on at school.
Yeah.
And you wanted to get presents for your friends.
Yeah.
And they were bringing things in, saying like, "Oh, I got this for you," and then I would make things.
Yeah.
Because that's what I had access to.
Yeah.
And I kind of just felt like I felt bad for not being able to do more for my friends.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been hard with the kids, you know, when you've got young kids, Christmas and birthdays, and I mean, Boyd must have been, what, was 7 or something like that? Or,
would have been,
yeah. So they didn't understand why they're not getting the latest, you know, you're not spending over the top of them. And I guess you would, because you was writing it, and Matthew's older, obviously. But, I mean, did you suffer that way? Did you feel bad that way?
Oh, yeah. But as I said, it took me to the edge.
Yeah.
I've been on the edge looking down a few times, you know, just because just the whole, you know, it's not even thinking that you failed, it's a thinking is, Christ, how, the funny thing is, right, when I did work, I had an alright pension, right, and that's always going through your mind. If I wasn't here, if I accidentally died, that pension get paid out to my family, and then they would have my money. And a few times I sat down there saying, how can I accidentally cause my own death?
Yeah, that's a horrible place to be.
Is it? It's not even. It's not even like contemplating suicide. It's contemplating how to. I don't know what it is.
Your life.
It's. I wasn't doing it to hurt anybody. I was doing it because I was thinking, the best thing for everybody now is I know I've got this policy on my head. What's the best thing to do? And I wasn't. I have been in that road a couple of times.
Do you think there needs to be better public understanding of this, Lauren?
Definitely.
Because I've been friends with him. I've never heard that part of the story before.
Right.
And I feel a little bit sort of filling up here as well. That people are at that stage because one, they didn't know if there's any help out there, and two, because they can't see any way forward.
No,
and they didn't know there's places like Quarriers there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was early on, as I said. As the kids have got older, it's become a wee bit easier.
Yeah.
But back then, it was like the one thing going over my mind, it stopped me from pulling the trigger, was that, well, if I'm not here, who is going to take care of my wife?
Yeah.
Who is going to take care of my kids? There is nobody else. Everybody else in my family, my brother's miles away. My mum's getting older. My wife's mum's getting older. I can't. So, and that's the one thing. My kids and my wife kept me moving forward for them. But it was a strange one because also the whole thing of thinking about pulling the trigger was to help them. And it was a strange conundrum to be in because it was like a.
But the bottom line of this is something that wasn't your fault.
No,
it's not your family's fault. It's not your wife's fault. It's something that's happened that you had no control over.
No control over.
And then it's something that's got control over you now as well, because that decides on what you spend on food, what you spend on entertainment, what you spend on your kids, and how much free time you've got as well.
Yeah.
So that is, I can understand really why people do go to the edge though.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, it's the whole change. There's being a home carer, an unpaid home carer, there's a change in family dynamics, right?
Yeah.
As I've said this a few times, that and especially with everything my wife went through as well, at times it's like I married someone my first 15 years of our life.
I get that.
The second 15 years of our marriage, it's a different woman.
Yeah.
So I've had to change.
Because she obviously struggled as well. This is we're talking about unpaid carers, but your wife has also got. She's the person that this has happened to.
Definitely, you take everything I've said and you double it. That's what she was going through.
Yeah.
But it becomes more of a, instead of a husband wife, it becomes more a carer, a person to be cared.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was saying to Lucy it's the small things in life that you miss, not being able to walk down the beachfront holding your wife's hand.
Yeah.
And that's a big one.
I remember you saying that.
And that's an absolute massive one. Because we've been put in a sort of a poverty. We were in massive poverty back, but the kids have grown up now. But me, if any of my kids decide to go and get married, we haven't got the money to go and put money towards a wedding.
Yeah.
We will never own our own house. We haven't been on holiday in God knows how long. The only reason we got a car is because DLA pay for it.
Yeah.
And this is the stigma that we're in at the moment with everything. We rely an awful lot on the government, and I don't think they should pay for me. And that's my big battle.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people who caused this should be paying for us.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But that's Scottish law took care of all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow you to do certain things. But that's a different story. But I did, as a carer, I got carer's allowance now, which is not a lot. It's £81 a week, which comes off my universal credit. so I'm not making it a week. So it's like every penny you make comes off of your lump sum of universal credit. But we're still in we're on the borderline of being poverty. We're not poverty, but we're not in any way means safe.
No.
You know,
but I mean, you're one step away from something going wrong, something breaking down.
Definitely,
you know, the washing machine breaks down, the TV breaks down, something like that.
Oh,
then
it's still there.
Yeah,
you know, we've still got our dishwasher broke down. It's still sitting there.
That's because you never fixed it.
Yeah, because I don't have that brains.
Right, we'll take another break here, and we'll be back right after this with the final questions to Sandy, Tanya, and Lauren.
You're listening to Shmu in Focus, brought to you by Station House Media Unit. Established in 2003 as a charity, Shmu is a cornerstone of culture in North East Scotland. We empower the voices of Aberdeen's priority areas through radio, video, music and digital media. From employability training to adult services, we're committed to uplifting communities. Stay with us for more stories that matter.
Welcome back to Shmu in Focus. We are talking about unpaid carers here on this particular podcast. Lauren, what do you think could be done to create meaningful change? Are you hopeful we might get there?
Yes, I mean, as long as we keep obviously showcasing the fact that there is quarriers out there, there is hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
As Sandy was saying before, caring can take you to some pretty dark places.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And that's part of what we provide is support and obviously an ear at the other end of the phone for people like Sandy in that situation who are struggling. A lot of the carers that we have do go through a lot of like mental health, and obviously that can be affected by their caring role. But as long as they've got another, an ear on the other end of the phone, I think it does help. It helps them a great deal, and we get a lot of feedback saying that obviously they're just grateful that there's someone there. I think if we just keep showcasing the fact that there is help and things that these carers are entitled to, I think that we will get there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems is that people don't know the help that's out there, and they think there's nothing more that can be done. Because I was going to say to you, Sandy, as well, just going to touch quickly because I know you says you think you're spoken enough, but it's interesting that you've been talking for a while about going back to work. Do you think there would be a stigma that people will look in your resume and say, well, wait a minute, here's this, you've been 15 years out of work, and then for you to explain that again, that's going through the thing twice, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely I can't ever see me ever going back into the job I left. I was in IT. You can't step away from IT for 15 years and walk back in. It just doesn't work.
No.
Technology changes too quick. But the stigma will be 1, 15 years out of job. 2, if we take him back on, how long is it going to be before his wife's ill again? And
or retrain,
or wife ill and he's going to have to leave again. Or you're going to have to be constantly paying sick pay for this guy while he's still having to look after his wife, So that's that's the problem of it. I have the conversation with the universal credit folk all the time, and they even talk about working from home, but it doesn't. It's caring's 24/7. You can turn around and say, yes, I can work an hour here, an hour there, but you can't really, because you haven't got that time to give. Really.
No, that's right. That's right. I was going to say to you. I was going to ask Sandy, but I'll ask you, Tanya, because he's spoken enough. What would tangibly make a difference to your life?
I don't know. I think what would have made a difference was the school I went to knew before I did that I was a young carer.
Okay.
So I think it would have helped if they signposted me to places, because I didn't know until this year and that's been 15 years since age of 10 that I've been a young carer. So I didn't know till this year that I was a young carer when I did training. So I think it would have helped if they had been more forthcoming with what was available to me and the fact that I was a young carer.
Was they aware of the situation? The
yes.
School?
Yeah, they were.
So did you have to make them aware of the situation?
Mm-hmm. No, I went out and spoke to all the heads and all the teachers to let them know. Well, I had to, because it was changed from my wife being the person who picks up all the kids to me, So I introduced myself as the father of all these kids. So, and that's where it all, as I said, we've lost friend groups out of it. We've lost quite a lot because the structure we had around us had just dissipated. Still had family, but you got to remember, you're talking about family, especially grandparents, they're from a different era. It's like pull your pants up and grow up. Give you a slap. It's and that's just the era they came from. And
No,
so
that's right.
There's nothing you can you can try and say that's not the way we live now, but it's just the era they were born in, and so they didn't really understand. So the way they understood was by trying to give us money, maybe trying to take. I think your nan, Tanya's nan, took her to Dubai. With her granddad, just to see my brother. So she got a holiday just to take her away, which I'm sure was brilliant for her at that age. She, as I said, she paid for Boyd's season ticket to Tawdry right up until she died. And she was, she constantly, and she was the one that actually paid for Matthew's football tuition. So that's the way that the grandparents got involved, was they made sure that as much as they could, because as I said, my mum tried to keep Tanya's dancing ongoing, but as anybody knows, dancing it's not cheap.
No.
It's not a cheap thing to be doing, and to do that for a prolonged thing is not that good. So and that's the way the grandparents dealt with things.
I think the main thing that people need to understand is it's for you two guys and for your two sons as well. It's 24/7 for you guys, and because you could be on call anytime. I mean, you could be into your work and you get a phone call, something's happened, and as you say, you've kind of got to put your life on hold a little bit as well.
Well,
so
my life's run around there's got to be someone at home all the time.
So what needs to be done to get better public understanding then?
What needs to be done?
I think highlighting the place of the quarriers, that needs
Definitely,
to be highlighted.
that's what happened, because everybody needs to know there's other people to go to rather than Cab.
Yeah.
And if places, possibly happens now, maybe Quarriers wasn't around 15 years ago, I don't know, but for places like Cab to say, or there is other places you can go to, that can help. Even as they were saying with the respite bit, I never knew that could happen. I could actually take a couple of days out, and just get a respite. I did have it. But when my respite, Tanya took over, and at 10, 11 years old, it's not really a nice thing to do.
No.
Which I didn't realise I was doing actually till the other day. But I think definitely, and just to help, not. I think it's easy to, I'll put it this way, Dave. You know how maybe once a year everybody ties a little pink ribbon on their wrist, and then the ribbon's gone, right? It needs to be longer than a day.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
It needs to be, it doesn't need to be every day, but you need to know that at any time you can turn around and that person's going to be there. The ribbon a day is brilliant for that one day, but then everybody sort of forgets after
about
that.
Yeah.
And I think being able to prolong that so everybody remembers. I think Tanya picked up a great one there with the school. I think the schools could be a lot better. I do know they're overstaffed, or they're understaffed, sorry, and the schools are bursting with pupils, but there's a lot of people in the same scenario, and I'm sure there's people out there listening to this podcast at the moment are in exactly the same scenario as we're in.
Well, that ties us up pretty nicely, because we're just coming to the end of the podcast, and there's a question for you all here is, for anyone listening out there who's an unpaid carer, what would you say to them? Start off with you, Sandy, first.
What would I say to them? Try and keep your family structure. It's very important you keep your family structure. Don't get pulled down to this carer being cared. As much as you can, if you can keep your family together, I think go moving forward. I think that would be best for them. And don't be scared to ask for help.
Yeah, Tanya.
For people who was in like my position. I think it's important for parents and kids alike to look up what it means to be a young carer, and to make sure that the kid knows what they're doing isn't necessarily what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
and places like Bernardo's, they do like young carers, like stuff for young carers. So it's important to allow the kids to still be kids.
Yeah, Lauren, because I mean, one of the stats that really hit me in the face was 800,000 unpaid carers in Scotland. That's incredible. That's unbelievable, to be quite honest with you. So what would you say to unpaid carer out there? What would you say to them? I suppose that you are there for them.
Yeah, I would say it's important just to get out there to any unpaid carers that obviously there is support available. There's a lot of support available if they obviously get in contact with Quarriers. There's various different ways we can support a carer, obviously as I've already said, through like respite and things like that. Even just someone to listen on the end of the phone if they're struggling. There's definitely there's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel, and obviously there are things that we can do to help them going forward. But yeah, that's what I would say.
That's great, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for being so honest, the three of you for being so honest. It's been actually opened my eyes as well. But remember, as we were saying, there is people out there. We will give you links at the end of this podcast to Quarriers and places like that. If you're an unpaid carer, then you should be able to find out what you are actually due, and don't struggle. And as Sandy says, keep your family structure. Thank you very much, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tanya.
No problem.
And thank you, Lauren, as well. We'll be back with another podcast very, very shortly.
Thank you for listening to Shmu in Focus. If any of the topics we've discussed resonate with you, remember that you're not alone. Support is available. Take care and be sure to join us for our next episode as we continue to explore the issues important to you and your community.